Time it is that you shall find this footage. It is a delight and honor to have you with us here at the Debate Circle. It has been a short minute since we hosted a conversation, but we are back in business and we are glad to have this particular conversation here with us today. The matter for today, or the subject that we are going to be discussing, as you have always known us to do, which is discuss issues, is the youth policy debate. One of the things that we are very passionate about here at the Debate Circle, and I am sure at this point in time those that follow us are well aware, is issues of youth in governance. We believe that the asset that young people are in this country is almost indescribable. The value that young people bring is dynamic, it is flexible and contributes significantly, and that is why we at Debate Circle are fully committed to delivering conversations of this nature going forward now and into the future, of course. So thank you so much for joining us. Today we are going to be having two universities that have been furnished with what we are calling a democracy handbook. And the essence of this particular challenge was to determine where young people stand whenever it comes to issues of democracy and policy making. We have tasked two universities. Of course, it was straight off the bat, and none of them was quite aware about what policies look like. But I am convinced that today, as we listen to their submissions on the challenge that we have given them for the past 1 month, we shall most definitely see quite some improvement. But before we get too much into it, I'm going to allow our patron, Mr. Maina Shege, to come and say a word, and of course invite you, the audience in the room, and of course the audience at home, and then we can begin this session. Maina, the floor is yours.
I forgot my watch today. I just checked on it and I was like, where is it? Is it good morning though? I believe, is it? So good morning, guys. Thank you so much for coming. This is the home of debates, the Debate Circle. And we believe that you guys are the people who inform and even help the people who actually craft these things, because you're about to exit and become the people who actually craft them, make decisions that are wise and that are formidable for the nation. So thank you so much for coming. I want to be as brief and say I can't wait to sit down, listen to you, listen to what you came up with, and get to learn. Listen, there's never an end to learning, and so I am so glad that you're here. Just to welcome you once again and tell you that anytime you hear about Debate Circle, please rush in and help us develop these particular conversations. People are listening, we're already live, and there are people tuning, and can't wait to hear from your end. What is it that you have for us? So karibuni sana, and let's debate.
Thank you so much, Maina. That is our patron, of course, and the director at Frontlight Media, our official media partners. As you have been well aware, we have been able to bring you a lot of conversations to that end, and that is the person that makes it happen. Thank you so much once again for joining us. I think I shall allow Strathmore to come and wow us with whatever submissions they have. I think they have I can see their little handbook, and I'm very delighted. So I'm going to allow Jeff and the team to come and present to us their submissions, as well as mention the problem that they were tasked with solving. A round of applause for them as they make their way.
Right. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As it has been mentioned, it's a delight to more or less be here and participate in the, in governance from the very beginning. So the task a month ago was pretty simple. Yeah, we were supposed to develop a policy aimed at increasing effective participation of Kenyan youth in democracy, specifically through the electoral process. So for us to be able to do this, first and foremost, we had to understand what exactly the principles of effective youth participation are. We have institutionally mandated participation, right? A rights-based system of participation. We have a safe system of participation, a system that allows for designation, right? A resource-empowered system of participation. And a lot of these other buzzwords that, could come up along the way, right? But moving on swiftly, we must understand, first and foremost, the question of why this voting, or why youth in Kenya find voting pointless. Because of three things. We must understand democracy from the lens, from a three-tiered lens, right? Democracy ideally emanates from the concept of identity, right? So here the youth feel that their vote cannot be able to make a difference, and even if they did vote, that ideally it's pointless for them to be able to vote, right? On the second pillar of democracy, right, we have the element of representation. Here, the youth feel that generally there is no reason, there's no party that they would like to vote for, and generally they are more likely to vote, and they would be more likely to vote if these candidates actually resonated with them, right? Taking us to the third and most important element here in democracy, and I think this is the foundational bit, yeah? The element of participation. The youth would be more likely to vote if they understood this political system better. Ladies and gentlemen in the house today, remember these three key concepts: identity, representation, and participation. It's on those three limbs that we take you to ideally what we would refer to as our policy proposal to be able to ensure that kind of effective participation of the youth in that democratic process. The creation of a framework that empowers the youth to be able to vie through resource mobilization and capacity building. Understand this from two lenses, ladies and gentlemen. The capacity building front. Generally, political parties are the entry points for the youth who wish to stand for any elections, right? They remain one of the most important mechanisms that are there for them, for youth to be able to engage in political processes and engagement as a whole. We must understand this, ladies and gentlemen, once again, right? That the electoral process is just but a small facet of the democratic process as a whole. Meaning that if we're able to create a framework that is able to empower the youth from a capacity building perspective, echoing, I think, the President, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, when he says that these political parties should be used as a mechanism of mentoring, as a mechanism of growth, taking us to the second most important element here of resource mobilization. We must understand that running political campaigns is incredibly expensive, right? The cost of nomination alone may even prevent young people from being able to stand for office. We must be able to understand, even in some contexts, corruption has in fact infiltrated this political system largely. Accessing campaign financing is an incredible bit that ideally is becomes even more difficult for those who are in marginalized situations. Some regions recognize this problem and have actually dealt with it in legislation that actually supports that kind of youth participation. We have Ireland, ladies and gentlemen. Political parties spend a significant portion of their funding on inclusion of young people. What are some of the most emerging policy concerns that are there? The creation of a mandatory quota for youth in all political parties to allow them to be able to transfer that functionality of inclusivity, the basic structure of the political organization. Secondly, the commitment of at least 15% of the party budgets to be able to support youth-focused expenditure, specifically relating to marginalized young people, including women, youth with disabilities, indigenous youth, and those ones who are from rural areas. Our policy is also cross-cutting. It touches on different elements of the society that actually exist today. You see that it touches on the marginalized groups of people that are present, right? It touches on the indigenous youth that are present from rural areas. It also touches on historically disenfranchised groups such as women in society. Taking us to the third policy concern, emerging policy concern, that is the benchmark of this specific framework. The creation of resource hubs and leadership centers for mentorship and this capacity building among the youth in political spaces. It is on those three merits that we transition to the second framework that we'd like to present by Mr. Ted Iha.
So after the wave of politics is done and dusted and you fail to get nomination, is there a second chance? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. Because remember, the political nominations occur based on what you know or who you know. And the thing is, everyone speaks one language, the language of money. So if we don't have money, what else do we have? The second idea of the second framework we give is to create mechanisms to help prevent the marginalization of the youth in a bid to improve the inclusion through all walks of life. So how is this going to work? It is apparent that actually in all political systems, you find that majority of the youth are actually feeling disenfranchised from it. Why? Because of the three main things we talked about: identity, representation, and participation. I do not identify with the person on the ballot, so I choose not to vote. I don't believe they will represent my idea, so I choose not to vote. Now, because of those two reasons, you find that it becomes a very big challenge for us to get the youth to actually participate in any election whatsoever. Now, what you need to realize is we need to create forums for people to actually have these conversations, and actually thank you Debate Circle for creating one in itself where we actually get to analyze these kind of conversations. It's been long argued actually that young people are the interest of the whole nation, and the fact remains is we are the larger majority. So take for instance Kenya, where 50% is the youth, and yet the youth themselves do not choose to vote. Then that shows that the youth do not feel like there's the need to vote. And we've told you the biggest issue is the identity and representation aspect. Now, what do we offer, and what are the policy issues that we feel need to actually be taken into consideration? We need to recognize new forms of youth participation. You need to realize that majority of us do not communicate via texts anymore. We are mostly on social media nowadays. You need to recognize that there's the power of the internet that the youth are using for activism, where you find that movements start on social media. Examples: Me Too, Black Lives Matter, etc., etc., showing that there's actual power in disseminating information through the use of social media and other forms of internet. The second thing we recognize is the regular government-sponsored surveys for data, because it would be completely inconsequential for us to start something that we cannot measure. So with time, you'll be able to know. We've had 15% of people elected through youth-centered movements and forums. So maybe the youth quarter of a political party has had 15 members elected. Then this time we've had 15. The next time we have 27. The next time we have 50. That way the youth will feel like there's actually a measuring stick that we can follow and we can benchmark the changes. And the inclusion aspect is actually something that has been done before. If you go to Singapore, they started something called the group representative the group representatives constituency. What that aims to do is bring a group of people together. Now, that's one way of including it. But the other thing is the youth also want to represent their ideas in the court, in the parliament, and all other forums that we have in legislation whatsoever. So we try to improve that by doing the last thing, monitoring and evaluation through public access briefings and every quarter with youth groups, and maintain accountability and transparency. So how do you do that? You're constantly measuring the data you're getting. If you had, like I said, 291 MPs elected, how many of them are youth? How many of them are moving towards the youth-centered agenda? How many of them are actually closer to the problem? The reason why identity and representation is actually a key problem is because we feel like there's no proximity to the issues we are having. We do not need delegations formed and committees formed to try and tell us how best to govern the country. We believe that we could govern the country through the active inclusion and participation. And with that, we bring it to the third framework that we present to you today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abigail, and I will take you through the third pillar, which is also the final pillar in our framework. Thank you. So we've had, especially on the second pillar, about the importance of using social media and things like that to disseminate information, as Ted said. However, we also took note of the fact that youth apathy should not be taken the same way as youth disinterestment in policy and politics in totality. Because if there's one thing that the youth in Kenya are, is passionate. They have a lot of passion. They just don't know where to take this passion. Most of the time, it is just because of something as simple as not having adequate or sufficient information. While democracy and election does include a lot of things, its bedrock is civic education. Most of the time, people don't even know how to register for a voter's card. And after conducting our analysis and research, we were shocked to find that up to this day and age, there are still some youth, especially in the deep interiors, rural areas, and marginalized communities, who don't even know how to get an ID card. Basic information that we who are privileged think is just general knowledge appears to be something that is actively acting to the disenfranchisement of the youth. So this is what we propose to cure this. Civic education incorporated into the education system of Kenya, so we can attack the people, we can attack the problem right at the formative age of the youth. How do we suggest to do this? This was using a statistics in the Norwegian countries, yes, I believe, where youth civic education on democracy, public participation, policy making, and things like that was encoded as a core compulsory unit in every single university, public or private, regardless of the course that you were taking. We believe that taking this active step at first instance will put the youth in a position where they are being handed raw information firsthand. Therefore, once they are making their choices, they are making even more informed choices. Taking us back a step back, we recognize that through units such as social studies and histories, youth are taught some very basic principles of democracy and such that. But we think that's not enough, because look at something like history. It's not a compulsory unit in high school. You could choose history, you could choose geography. So our suggestion is include democracy into the curriculum, include civic participation in the curriculum such a way that it becomes you get information not because you have access to it, not because you're privileged, but simply because the government and policymakers have taken that extra mile to ensure that every person, youth, even in their formative years, are being informed of what exactly civic education looks like. They know not only what to vote, but they also understand why they need to vote. And we think that is the biggest threat, that is one of the central causes of youth apathy. Like he said, people don't resonate with the leaders anymore. So So therefore, they end up asking the question, why vote? But voting goes so much deeper other than just the person. It's about their manifestos. It's about their ideas. And we are at a position where youth don't even ask these fundamental questions anymore. So it is our belief, if civil education is enrooted, bedrocked into the education system in Kenya, it will trigger the youth to start asking the important questions. Now, what are the emerging policy concerns about this? Recognizing and establishing youth-led organizations and networks locally and internationally with direct relationships to national legislations. Now, education in this day and age is still, quote-unquote, a luxury for some people. So those people who don't have access to school, how do we get ahead on them? How do we make sure that they still manage to hear the information that we are trying to broadcast rather to all youth groups in this position? It is through youth-led organizations and networks locally and nationally recognized with a direct relationship to the national government and policymakers. They will take the information to the people, they will take the information to these disenfranchised youth, and therefore they will also have a similar advantage to their peers who are, for lack of a better word, more informed. There is also the introduction, I think I've already mentioned this, the introduction of a vivid education as a mandatory subject in the vivid years. So aside from it just being a unit in social studies or a unit in history, we introduce it as a principal learning curve, not just near the election where the government goes out of its way to mass dump information on people in just 2 months. No, we are suggesting that it be a constant growth, a constant pattern, a constant information that in his word is being disseminated into the youth. Finally, it is the use of incubation hubs to facilitate a dissemination of objective functional information in the civic space and all its processes. This is tying back in what he said, for example, the use of social media. And like as we see platforms such as this, such as the debate circle, which draw the attention of us as university students and just in totality creates a more informative space in addition to the civic education that is being offered by the government, by the education centers. Yes, and I think that is it on our final pillar, and we will move on to our monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. Thank you.
So yes, how do we measure success? How do we measure failure? How do we monitor? How do we evaluate? So the monitoring aspect is the continuous following of the data that's happening. Evaluation is assessing whether we've actually had a successful or a failed experience from what we have carried out. So in the monitoring aspect, we look at it with 3 steps. Number 1, youth group oversight through the formation of consortium of youth-oriented community benefits, organizations that bring accountability down to the grassroots level. So what am I saying in simpler terms? We are looking at a point where the youth can actually have oversight over what the government is doing and be able to bring it down themselves to the community at large. We're saying youth for youth advocacy. So what we're saying is I as a youth, a young person who has actually understood what exactly we're trying to achieve through the government implementation of these products, we should actually have a say and oversight, meaning that we have an eye on the government and actually have the ability to actually know what is happening. Then we can take that back home and alleviate the illiteracy levels or the lack of knowledge that is happening when it comes to matters to deal with democracy and electoral processes. Next, social audits in the presence of representatives from youth groups through the provision of quarterly reports on progress for citizen evaluation. So what are we saying? We're saying that at the end of the term, every quarter, please come and tell us, we have done A, B, C, D for the youth. The youth have been able to access 1, 2, 3, 4 as a result of the following changes, and this is what I have been able to do for you now that we've implemented this policy. That way we're able to be accountable to the people that we know. Next, the reward system for political parties that attain the aforementioned guidelines by driving up political mileage for adherence of the recommendation. So how is that done? We already have the majority leaders, minority whips. Why not have a youth minority whip and a youth majority leader as a recognition of the efforts that you've done to try and implement this kind of processes at the end of the day? That way you're able to know that we're actually having effective change because political parties now have to adhere to this thing. Also, on top of that, it will be able to sustain the political parties at long run because you realize that political parties die because one person hands the party to someone they know instead of someone who's qualified. So you have a group of youth that's actually invested in the party, and that way they're able to take this party as their own, and they're able to actually take charge of it and carry out elections, nominations, and take part in the decisions of the political party. Now we move to the evaluation. So the publishing of these progress reports by the affected governments and departments and the political parties on every quarter and progress. So this is how you do. The reports must be accessible that all national languages can actually be able to read. So how does it look like? It looks like this. Because we've actually moved to a point where we are actually translating our radio and TV stations in vernacular, why not make the same thing? Why not have these government reports written in English, Kiswahili, of course, the national languages, but depending on the region that you are, you're able to actually have these vernacular languages used to disseminate the messages, because at the end of the day, as much as we do speak English and Swahili, there are vernacular stations for people who do not understand the word in those two languages. Next, report on all data collected through surveys and all other data collection mechanisms used to generate consistent information. So what you do is this. At the end of the day, report on the collected data to the youth. Tell us that we have been able to access X amount of people using the vernacular stations that we're using. We've been able to write X amount of reports. We've printed 1,000 copies or 10,000 copies that have been disseminated in this and these areas. They're with your area chief, your area sub-chief, or so and so. So that way people are able to access, because as long as we're able to know that the reports are there, we'll be able to access. Next, annual reports from all involved stakeholders to be made public and accessible to the legacy through legacy media and social media for ease of access. Same way we do campaigns where we actually have people participating and actually telling us the message through fun, youthful languages like Sheng, is the same way we advocate that the annual reports from all involved stakeholders be made public and use the media platforms to enable the youth access this information. Now, in summary, we are saying this. The space of the young people is actually something that needs to be addressed. Superficially, the biggest financial and technological investments and advancements that we have in the modern day today are as a result of the youth. So why not involve the youth fully and involve them in the decision-making process? Because at the end of the day, if we are the innovators of today and the leaders of tomorrow, why not start taking charge right here, right now? With that said, we would like to close our presentation, and we thank you all for listening to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Strathmore, they have said that we are the innovators of today and the leaders of tomorrow. A very powerful end there. I hope that you have been able to catch something. We shall get down to evaluating them just after we have had the other proposals. We're going to have to excuse Strathmore. They have an academic commitment that they have to attend to. However, some members of their team are going to be left behind for the purposes of this particular event. Before we go on and perhaps invite Kenyatta University, I would like to acknowledge a few people in the audience. I'm going to start with the managing partner at Ngugi Mburu Advocates. This is Mr. Eliud. He's seated in the audience today. Mr. Eliud is part, or rather is a managing partner at a top law firm, like I've said, and he's very passionate about young people and the intersection of policy and governance, especially in the space of legislation. So we are delighted to have you with us today. I'm also going to acknowledge the presence of our foundational partner here, and that is Center for Multi-Party Democracy. It is represented by Marvin Wamukota, and CMD is basically a space that champions for multi-party democracy, and they work together with stakeholders and other organizations such as ourselves to deliver on their mandate. So we are very delighted to have you with us today. I am going to pass the apologies from the National Youth Council that was intending to send a representative but was unable to make it on time, as well as Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry that was also unable to send a representative despite sending their well wishes. I am now going to invite Kenyatta University. The floor is yours. Please tell us what you have for us today as regards this particular topic. A round of applause.
It's on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's such a lovely morning, and we are pleased to be here for the purposes of record. My name is Daniel Murakaru, and my colleagues on my left, it's Vivian Tawarar, and on my right, it's Miss Joan Musioka. And we are truly delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Debate Circle. To all distinguished guests, welcome. This is Kenyatta University. I would like to start us off by bringing up different perceptions that have been brought about by people in the society. The youth have been called different names, and different perspectives have been given to this youth. A particular part give the youth the name, the future, the hope, the generation that we are looking forward to. But another function looks at this generation as a microwave generation, a generation that likes to do things easily, a generation that likes to get things at first hand. But today, and then the next question that we ask ourselves is, how then do we expect these people to then, participate in elections if these are the names that we are calling them, if these are the labels that we are giving the young people in our country? And today, we're going to present to you on the different problems that we saw during the 2022 election and how they affected the youth such that they led to voter apathy, especially among these young people. And how we're going to do this is that we're going to do a brief historical background on how voter turnout has been since multi-party election. We'll start with 2002 all the way to 2022. And then thereafter, we are going to do a data analysis. We did some data collection at Kenyatta University School of Law to better understand this particular problem. And then afterwards, we're going to dissect the problem in the three pillars that we saw them. That is before election, during election, and after election. And then thereafter, we're going to give our conclusion and our recommendations. Now, in the 2002 elections, we find that multi-party had already been introduced in Kenya after the removal of Section 2R from the repealed constitution. And we find that this gave Kenyans the opportunity to have different parties and to participate in elections more freely. And in 2002, we find from 2002 to 2007, all the way to, we find that there was a steady increase in the voter turnout, because in 2002 we had around 55%, and then in 2007 the percentage increased to about 60%, all that is provided for in our document. Then after the promulgation of the new constitution, people had a lot of beliefs in the electoral system, and they believed that the new laws that had been put in place through the Constitution of Kenya would provide a new dispensation towards or a new dawn towards the elections in Kenya. So what happened in this particular time? We find that the voter turnout increased. In 2013 we had around 85%, and in 2017 we had about 75%. Then afterwards in 2022, for the first time ever, that dropped to 64.76% of voter turnout. And this now begs the question on why have we seen such a steady decrease after the 2013 and after the 2017 election. And to better understand this problem, we undertook questionnaire through Google form. We prepared a Google form which we circulated around members in our schools, because students in our school are between the age of 18 to 35 years and majorly comprised of the youth. And we asked them different questions on what was their age bracket, whether they participated during the 2022 election, what were some of the challenges they saw, and what were some of the recommendations that they gave. And we got 26 responses from the different students who decided to partake in the study. And from these 26 responses, 61% of those people who responded participated in the election, but from the others did not participate. 38% did not participate in the election. Then we asked them what were some of the reasons that they think that made them not to participate in the 2022 election, and they said there were things to do with late issuance of IDs for students or for youth who have just turned the age of 18, the lack of adequate registration, voter registration, sensitization to the young people. And this now informed the different pillars, or how we saw this particular problem that we were given to solve. And we saw it in three different limbs on what are these issues that usually happen before election, during election, and after election that majorly discourage the youth from participating in this election. And that is what we're going to present to you this lovely morning. I'm going to welcome Joanne, who is going to handle the first pillar. I'm going to handle the second pillar, and my colleague Vivian is going to handle the third pillar. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joanne Musyoka, And as Daniel has stated, we decided to view the question that was presented to us in 3 limbs. That is before the elections period, during the elections period, and after the elections period. This is because a lot changes or a lot happens during the 5-year period between one election year and the other election year. So the first limb that we're going to discuss is during the pre-election period. So the first limb we're going to discuss is pre-election period. And during the pre-election period, we were able to identify a myriad of problems. And I mean problems upon problems. Now, the first problem that we were able to identify that is causing non-participation of the youth in the elections was poor civic education. Now, I remember one time during one of the modules that we take at my school, the lecturer asked, how many of us are going to vote? It was, I think, several months to the elections, and the lecturer asked how many of us are going to vote. And I kid you not, 3 or 4 hands were raised out of a class of around 50 to 60 students. And the lecturer went ahead, he was concerned, he went ahead and asked, why are you not voting? And one of the answers that one of the students gave was, why should I vote if the president has already been decided? Now, Makio, this is months to the election, and the youth have this perception that even if I come out and vote, this is only for a show. The president has already been predetermined. So Kenyan youth have demonstrated a sheer lack of interest or a disinterest to political matters generally and to the electoral process. Now, this is because of what I have stated, poor civic education. Now, if I were to define civic education, I would define it as a process through which citizens are educated on how and why they should vote. In other words, empowering the citizenry, or rather, creating an empowered citizenry. Now, poor civic education means poor voter turnout, because I do not believe anyone in their right state of mind will show up to something that they do not understand. If I did not understand what is going on here, I kid you not, I would not have shown up. So it is very important for young people to understand why they should be involved in the election process, why they should be involved in politics, why they should be involved in leadership matters. In a recent Instagram reel by Barack Obama, he stated something that I found rather funny. He said, many young people ask, why should I vote? And he said, I am just going to be honest with you. Voting is not going to make Rihanna's next album drop any faster. It is not going to make the next season of your favorite movie drop any faster. But he stated something very important, and this is what I am going to term as civic education. So whenever you remember what I was talking about, I want you to picture Barack Obama. He has done a tremendous job in civic education. Now, civic education is important as it will answer the very important questions. What change will my vote bring? Will my single vote matter? Will just one vote change the entire trajectory of the whole nation? Or would I just rather stay home and just sleep and, do all those fun things I would have done on that particular day? And Barack Obama went ahead and stated that showing up to vote and casting a vote as a young person is going to be beneficial in the long run, because the leaders that you vote in are the leaders who are going to decide the laws that are going to govern your country. They are the leaders who are going to decide what proposals are they going to bring on board. So, for example, we use United States as a study case. There is a lot going on with regard to abortion laws, with regard to so many things that we can call controversial. All these things, they are determined by the kind of leaders that we vote in. Now, the burden of civic education, now coming back to Kenya, the burden of civic education lies on the government, the burden of civic education lies on IEBC, and the burden of civic education should heavily lie on the young leaders, the leaders who are actually elected. Because I want to picture a young leader like Babu Owino, a young leader like Charles Kanyi, who is no longer a member of parliament, but I want to picture a situation where they are putting themselves out there and they are ensuring that the young people, their fellow young people, understand why it is important for them to vote. Now, I have said that voter education or civic education lies on the young leaders. But research has shown, and if I were to ask us, how many of us have seen leaders or politicians handing out unga, handing out bills of unga, handing out t-shirts, handing out capes? It's very sad to see that the politicians of today, instead of actually sensitizing the youth and telling them this is why it is important for you to vote, they have resorted to giving handouts instead of actually educating the young people. And now what does this do? This creates an impression in the young people's mind that by voting, I'm doing this leader a favor, and I'm not doing myself any favor. So why should I show up and vote? If they're giving me handouts to vote for them, it clearly shows that they are very interested, and their key interests are deep inside this process. Civic education, as I conclude on this particular problem, should be done in a timely manner, and it should be done targeting the youth, who are the particular audience in this case. Now, the next problem I was able to identify during the pre-election period was voter registration. Voter registration, this is a central pillar in any space of democracy. Now, Article 38.3 of our beloved Constitution bestows the right to vote. It gives everyone who is a citizen of Kenya, who has attained the age of 18 years, the right to vote. Now, for you to vote, Article 88.4G of the Constitution also mandates the IEBC, the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, with the duty to carry out voter registration. This is because, as we all know, for you to vote, you actually have to be a registered voter. You cannot just show up with your ID and your name is nowhere in the system. You register so that you can be put in the system, so that we can have an orderly way of doing things. Now, months to the elections, IEBC carries out what we call MVR. MVR is mass voter registration. Now, this MVR was initially intended to be a solution to the problem, but it in itself has created many problems. Now, as Daniel has stated, we carried out a Google form research, and one of the answers that was repeated countless number of times was the long queues, the long voter registration queues. Why do I need to queue for all that time? And this is why I will tie this problem to the earlier one that I had stated on civic education, because it is important for young people to understand that voter registration does not begin the period that the IEBC has given 2 months. You can actually walk into an Huduma center and register for a voter as early as now. We recently had our 2022 elections. If you want to register as a voter in 2027, you can easily walk into a Huduma center and register. But how many of us know about that? We all know about the short, quick period that the IBC gives us. They say in the next 6 weeks, we want massive voter registration, and that has really proven to be a problem. So as we give our policy proposals, we are going to present to you solutions to these problems that I have stated, solutions to the long queues, solution to the tedious time, solution to the short period of time given for voter registration, and solutions to the poor civic education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. To continue from where she stopped, we say that we're looking at this problem in 3 limbs. She has tackled what happens before elections. I'm now going to tackle what happens during elections. Now, during elections, all registered voters are expected to go to the polling station and vote. Now, position this. I am a student here at Kenyatta University School of Law, Nairobi. Let's say that time my school is ongoing and I have to travel from here and go back to my home, let's say in Kakamega, and vote. That is if my polling station is in Kakamega. The youths nowadays, the people below the age of 35, no one wants the tedious process of having to wake up early in the morning, move from one place to another, and just for the purposes of voting. Also, another thing, just without traveling from one place to another, there are also, if let's say I'm still here in Nairobi and I still have to wake up early in the morning and go out and vote. So this tends to discourage most of the young people who do not want to wake up, want this process to be very quick and very fast, rather than going and queuing for long lines and then just for one vote. They don't understand what this one vote means, and that day during the election, they don't want to keep on moving from one place to another. Remember, as I started by saying, is that we are a microwave generation and we need things that work fast, because most of us are on the digital platform. So we need something whereby I can just wake up and in less than a minute, I have already voted and completed voting. The other second issue that we came across was the complex identification systems that are used during voting. Now, we identify that most of the youths at that particular time, most of them may have lost their identity cards. You cannot vote in a particular election without an identity card. And most of the times, the procedure of acquiring an identity card is usually complex and long in and of itself. And therefore, we were seeing that this was one of the major problems that was discouraging the youth from going to vote in the 2022 elections, because most of them will go there and will be turned away because they do not have their ID. Maybe it got lost, or even maybe the IDs have been they registered for IDs, but these IDs have taken a lot of time before they can be processed. Thank you. I'm going to welcome Vivian, who's going to handle the third limb.
Good morning. I think I'm pretty tall. Okay, yeah. My name is Vivian Tawarar. I'm also a fourth year. I'm going to handle the last pillar, that's after elections. And first, John F. Kennedy said, ask not what the country can do for you, but what can you do for the country. And we as the young generation should endeavor to effect change in the spaces that we exist in. Pertinent to that, we are the Gen Z generation. We want things in a very quick way. Like, we don't want the patience aspect here. I'm going to go to the post-election, the inadequate civic engagement. First, the Article 1 provides for sovereignty of the people. Here the people are the ones to decide on each and every aspect as provided for in the Constitution. And being that, the Constitution also provides that they can do so either directly or indirectly. And the issue of directly, it's matters pertinent to voting, and indirectly matters pertinent to voting. And the issue of directly is where now the leaders come in and you just decide to take certain spaces in certain avenues. Voter apathy is something that is so prevalent. Most of us youth, we don't want to go and vote. Sometimes we feel that we are being taken as voting machines, because what next after voting? No one is going to come to you about any other thing. We'll just hear them, on media, this is what they have decided, but we are not taking part in that process. There's a case known as the Robert Gakuru case. Being a law student, most of the aspects that we encounter is the cases. So we evoke from the cases. The courts held that public participation should not be just a mere formality or just a consultation. That's your right. Article 119 provides for public participation and public access, where it's your right to be involved in each and every matter that is legislative or government-oriented. I think that's it for me. I'll come back for the other pillar.
So, as I had stated, I identified two problems. And if you can remember, my problem number 1 was poor civic education, and my problem number 2 was poor voter registration. So, as I stand before you, I'm going to offer you the solutions to this problem. Now, creating an empowered today means creating an empowered tomorrow. And an empowered today can begin to be created as early as yesterday. Now, our first proposal on improving the participation of the young people is with regard to increasing civic education on the electoral process among the youth. Now, the young people are 18 to 35, but can you imagine how much impact it will make if civic education actually began before one gets to the age of 18? Now, our first policy proposal is infusing civic education into the education curriculum. Now, the education curriculum, we were proposing that we can begin it from high school. So, young people from junior high, I understand the CBC, so from junior high to senior high, young people from the junior high school or junior secondary school can begin, the government can begin sensitization on why it is important for you to vote. And how can they do this? They can do this either directly or indirectly. Now I'll start with how the government can infuse voter education indirectly. They can do this through ensuring that schools actually carry out elections to vote for the school president, to vote for the deputy school president, to vote for their leaders. Because once one understands that I have the duty to vote for this person, and how I vote for them is going to affect my stay at school, then once they are out of school, they're not going to ask these questions of why should I vote? Why is it important for me to vote? And the other direct way on how we can infuse voter education into the education curriculum is through something called IEBC voter education curriculum. Now, I'm not sure if many of us have heard about it, but it actually exists. And I went through it as we were preparing for this presentation, and it actually has very important nuggets. It has information about how digital voting is done. I mean, how many of us know how digital voting is done? It has, diaspora voting, I'm sorry about that. Diaspora voting, how diaspora voter registration is done. It has a lot of information about electoral laws. Now, I want you to imagine how much we're going to have an empowered youth if they are that empowered when they're in high school, if we start when they're in high school, when they start understanding the electoral laws in high school, when they start understanding the electoral offenses in high school, when they start understanding the importance of actually voting competent leaders when they're in high school. And I'm not just talking about high school, we can also have it now in the university programs. It can be introduced as a module, because currently in my uni we have a program on leadership. So how about we also have a program on voter education. Now the second way we can improve civic education is holding the young leaders in office responsible. The young leaders, I will mention them again. For example, Babu Wino. For example, the youngest women representative who was elected, she is very young. Now, such people should be held accountable. We hold them responsible for the education of their fellow youth. We don't just leave that to the president and, to the big fish. These guys who are near us, these senators, governors, these, members of parliament, we mandate them with that responsibility of ensuring that the young people understand about voting. Our other proposal was creating more awareness about the present IEBC voter education curriculum. I want to challenge each and every one of us today. Once we leave here, go Google it. It's on Google. Go find it. Go through it. Just go and, improve your knowledge about that. Also reviewing and restructuring the channels and process of sensitization. Because I feel like IEBC did not do as we expected them. According to me, they underperformed when it comes to civic education. There was more they would have told us. There was more they would have done. I did not see IBC officials in our Buddha sheds. I did not see IBC officials in our universities. I did not see IBC officials anywhere except when they were asking us to register as voters. So I feel like they can do more, and just specifying and increasing the sensitization among the youth is going to do a really good job. We also propose that there should be created a citizen board, a youth board, a citizen board by the youth for the youth. Now this means we have a board responsible for the youth by the youth. It's just that simple. For the youth by the youth. And finally, on increasing civic education, it is also important for us to take steps after public participation by ensuring that the young people are also involved in other things after elections. We don't just use them as bait to catch our votes, and then after that, we see you in the next 5 years. That should not be how it should be done. Now, on the second policy issue, on voter registration, our proposal is streamlining the voter registration process. Now, we can do this in several ways. The first way we can streamline voter registration is once you turn 18, when you're going to apply for your identification card, we're proposing that they include, or I don't know what's the right word for it, they involve the IEBC officials. So as you register for your ID, in that ID application process or ID application place, there's an IEBC official. So at the same time as you register for your ID, you also register for your voter card. And that means if you turned 18 in 2022, you're good and you're set to go for 2027. That will solve the problems of, I don't want to make long lines, I don't want to, there's no time, I have job, I have school. It will really solve so many problems. Also, the other way we are proposing is easing the process of changing one's polling station. Now, this is a thorn in the flesh that is not talked about. Once you change your polling station, I don't know how many of us changed our polling station during these elections, but IEBC has not paid much attention to changing one's polling station. They have paid attention to voting registration, but they have actually not paid articulate attention, because you'll find that once you change your voter registration, I'll give you a practical example as I finish. I was a clerk during the 2022 elections. And one man was very angry at 4 a.m. in the morning. This is because he had come all the way from Dandora to Thika Road, because he moved from Thika Road to Dandora, and that means he changed his polling station. But in the morning, he woke up at 4 a.m. and went to vote, and you know what they told them? They told them, we see you in the system, but your name is not in this polling station. Your name is in your former polling station. And so the guy, being the patriotic Kenyan he is, he made his way to Thika Road, and he came. And do you know what I told him? I see your name here, but your name is in Dandora polling station. What is that confusion? That was so much confusion. So I feel like if IEBC pays attention, the required attention to streamlining and ensuring changing of one's voter polling station is easy and it's actually done well, then this will solve 100 problems that we have. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to tackle... I'm going to tackle the third policy, that is robust civic. I'll first begin by defining civic engagement. This is the participation of the people in matters to do with the public concern. This can be in different forms. We have the individual volunteerism, we also have the organizational, and we also have the aspect of governmental. I'm going to rely so much on the governmental civic engagement, because this is where the aspect of representative democracy comes in. Abraham Lincoln defines democracy as democracy to be for the people, of the people, and by the people. The Constitution, as I said, clearly, Article 1 provides for where people, like we as the sovereign, can elect the people, like can elect members of parliament, can elect the governors. So, sorry. So as I was saying, the issue of representative democracy, it's very critical. This is the indirect way that we as youth get a chance to engage in matters politics. I'm also going to talk about certain issues. When you hear the word civic engagement, in my own understanding, you have to incorporate the issue of public participation and also the issue of access to information. There's no way I'm going to be involved in something that I'm not even aware of. And the Constitution, Article 35, provides for access to information. That is our right. And also the Access Information Act provides for, in Section 4, provides for every citizen has a right to get certain information, so long as maybe the speaker, more so in matters to do with the speaker, in those sittings, the issues that maybe they have to be done in camera. Also the issue of freedom of expression, that is Article 33. We all have a right to express ourselves and also to inquire or to receive certain information. Within 2017 and 2022, I want us to talk about the youth involvement in this. We've heard of the Youth Fund. It was part of the President, the Emeritus, Uhuru Kenyatta. He brought the aspect of the Youth Fund, but how sure are we that that thing was very effective? It wasn't that effective. Or how many of us here have gotten to a point where maybe they were given some cash maybe to start a business, or some things, they just seem maybe bureaucratic in a way, but kwa ground vitu ni different, as you always say. Yeah. So I think that's one of the ways that it should be, those are some of the things that should be incorporated so that the people, mostly we as the youth, can now have, we can now feel that we are really involved so that we can go out and vote. I'm going to go to, now according to our work plan, the issue of regulation providing for meaning and period of which the youth participate in matters. I'll first begin by defining the issue of what is public participation. In layman's term, public participation is the involvement of the public in matters to do with the legislation or policy making. When we talk about public participation, we have to put in mind the issue of subsidiary principle. This subsidiary principle is that principle that any person who, in whichever way, they are going to be affected with a certain principle or a certain policy, they have to be brought on board as the stakeholders when certain aspects are being taken care of. And you know, I was talking with my friends here, and we were talking about the issue of public participation. Like there are no there's no laid system of what public participation entails. We have the Public Participation Act, but it is a bill. It has not yet been passed. So we are proposing the issue of if the public participation can be done in a manner that it's, let me say it's bureaucratic, procedural, so that we can know what encompasses public participation and what does not include public participation. The other thing is about sensitizing of the youth to participate in matters social media. Right now, in the 21st century, most of us have smartphones. And I'm even thinking of the class. If maybe we don't have a class, they'll send the message to the WhatsApp group. So, because we know that everybody is able to access, despite people from the marginalized communities, but most of the youth can be able to access their phones so that each and every information can be portrayed to them in using their social media handouts, for example, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and yes, those aspects. I'm also going to talk about the issue of creating conducive environment for the youth to showcase their entrepreneurial skills. This can be done through the issue of taxes to be reduced. When the taxes are being reduced, now that's like an incentive for the youth to be able to get themselves involved in matters to do with businesses. I'm also going to tackle the issue of increase the youth meetings with the leaders in government. As I'd said earlier, we as the Gen Z talk about what do you bring to the table? Yes, I'm a youth, but what happens after I've already voted? There's nothing else for me. But when you bring the issue like barazas, as you say, barazas, then I'll feel like that's an incentive for me to, like even after voting, they're going to need me to address some issues. Yeah, so also in that aspect, I'm also going to talk about the issue of, the issue of checks and balances. The Constitution is also clear on the issue of checks and balances, where we as the youth or we as the people, under Article 119 talks about the right to petition Parliament on any matters that you feel that maybe the government should look into, you have a right. And also the issue of Article 201 talks about public finance. The principles of public finance, we also have the aspect of public participation and also accountability issue. You know, when we are talking about elections or the leaders, the need for accountability is very essential. So if that is going to be incorporated, I'm very sure that then we as the youth are going to really feel involved, and so we are going to go out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tawarar. And even as we conclude, I'm going to talk about the final policy proposal that we had. It's very short. We were proposing that there should be an introduction of a digital ID system, such that we have a digital eID. So this will ease the processes in, especially when it comes to acquiring a new ID, and when it also comes to the consolidation of all information pertaining a particular citizen. This digital eID has worked in various countries. For example, in Estonia, they have the digital eID, whereby with just that eID, you can be able to access everything. So you won't have to vote again, you won't have to register again as a voter, you won't have to be asked other questions in terms of you accessing government services with the digital eID. And then the beauty of the digital eID in Estonia is that once you're given the digital eID, you're given a security pin, and you're also given some particular security codes that are only particular to your to you. So if I'm Daniel, they'll give me security codes that only are pertaining to me, to my only digital eID, such that if I lose that digital eID, I'll just go to a police station and tell them my security code or my PIN, and they will be able to fast track the process of getting another digital eID card. This is because, as we had mentioned earlier, the process of acquiring IDs after somebody has lost is one of the major issues that prevents youth from participating in elections, because if I've lost one of my IDs, then the procedure for acquiring another one is cumbersome and is also long. So if we can solve that issue by having a digital eID, then it will encourage most of the youths in terms of voting. Also, the youth will not be required again to register for their voter registration card, because they will have the digital eID that will confirm their identity. And in conclusion, we would like to conclude with this quote from the late Kofi Annan, and he said that young people are never too young to lead, and therefore they must be included from birth. For a society that cuts itself off from its youth severs its lifeline. It is condemned to bleed to death. Therefore, this fine morning, I would like to imply that the only thing that we have stated in our policy proposal are three things: inform us, include us, and just make the process easy, and we will participate in that election. Thank you.
A round of applause for them as well. I think one thing that we have always said at the debate circle, and I shall continue to reiterate, is that we're very passionate about what we do here and what we pursue in terms of democracy, and conversations on democracy we feel have such a consequential space in the advancement of our cause as a youthful population. I think one thing that we can, well, there has always been arguments for whether democracy was the most idyllic standard, especially for African countries, but whether or not it was is a conversation for which the ship has sailed. We are here now, and therefore, as we have made our bed, so must we lie on it, as it is always said. Whichever way you look at democracy, you begin to acknowledge that it is not a process, it is not necessarily a singular event, as we have made it out to be. It is a cycle. And that whatever pillars you choose to evaluate your democracy, be it on the basis of enabling or constraining or electing, which is free and fair elections, free media, rights and liberties, it is an interconnected system of moving parts that consistently determine how we perform as a country and what our space is as a nation. And so essentially, seeing that Kenya is a 75% youthful population, the consequence of not having conversations of that nature and allowing ourselves to be carried away by the tide of, lethargy is going to be felt if it has not already begun being felt. You will feel the pinch in your education systems, in your unemployment, seeing that the greater majority of unemployed people happen to be between the ages of 18 to 35. So I would like to commend both teams that have been on stage. I think it was very important that we have this discussion, and I think it's very important that we acknowledge their participation and, of course, the kinds of solutions that they have brought to this table today. I remain very cognizant of the time, seeing that it's a weekday. I think we are all very aware, seeing that very many people were not able to make it today as much as they would have wished to. So you're going to allow me to get through the rest of this particular session as fast as is practically possible. At this juncture, I'm sure our judges will want to be able to deliberate on a few issues. So I'm going to allow our sponsors to speak, and I'm going to start with Mr. Elliot. I think the essence of having one person who is very passionate about young people and the intersection of legislation and policy is that you will see that over the years as a country we have had a lot of great policy ideas. The introduction of labor systems and informatics with labor systems. When you talk about the Vision 2030, when you talk about the SDGs, all of them place young people at the center core of this conversation. So I'm just going to allow Elliot to have a conversation with us, or just bring us whatever it is he has prepared on where do we stand as a country whenever it comes to legislation and policy, such that we can be able to affect issues of policy and give them validity within our legal structure. Those are our judges going to decide who takes the big cake home. So Elliot, thank you very much for making time, and you're welcome.
Morning. Yeah, my name is Nguki. Let me just start by saying that it's very impressive to hear some of you having such brilliant ideas at this point in life, in campus. And so I personally, I did not start in campus. And I think I'm jealous of you because you have a very bright future having started this early. And we hope that you are the next leaders. Actually, you are actually the leaders of today. And I've had very brilliant points, and I want to highlight some things that have been said this morning, even as I share about my story. I have been able to participate in my small way in policy development. I have discovered that most of the information comes to us and it's readily available to us through various platforms if we take advantage of that. And one of these platforms is, for example, the internet and the social media spaces that we're in. And my question today is, who are you following? What are you watching? Because that information is readily available to us if we actually are interested in that information. I enjoy watching parliamentary debates. I don't know how many of us, and especially in the previous parliament, the Senate had very vigorous conversations that would happen every so often. And we had most of our leaders, to just name a few, the current governor of Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, and the current governor of Machakos, Mutula Jr. Makueni, and also the incoming CS for lands, for roads and transport, Murkomen. These were some of the few senators who were able to actually debate and make sure that they did not bring their parties in this kind of debates that they were having, but they made sure that they were actually able to bring up some of their policies, some of their bills. And if you check the parliamentary website, because this information is actually here with us, if you take some keen interest and go through the parliamentary National Assembly website, has various highlights on various members of parliament who have introduced the bills. It actually will be able to show you the progress of that introduction of a bill. But before you even go there, our newspapers every single day have memorandums which are able to show us what various invitations to the public for public participation. And so they tell us, can you participate? And they have an email address. And just to give you an example of a recent example, which was actually from last week, when we had the CS's interviews and vetting processes. Members of the public were asked a month ago to participate in the process of objecting to some of those CS's appointments. And they were able to actually write, and all you need to do to participate in this process is do a simple petition or a letter highlighting why X and Y should not be vetted to be the CSs. And it was interesting to go through the report that was presented by Parliament, which highlighted some of these issues that had been raised by members of the public. Have we taken any action? Have we been interested in such information? Because again, this information is right with us. And depending with the medium that you're using, for example, that report, for me, it easily came to me because I'm in some WhatsApp groups where the report was shared. And it was interesting to see some people bring up issues to do with some of these members. And so what I'm trying to say is, we can start from where we are. You can start from here. And Daniel has raised an issue, and I liked his closing remarks, where he said that we all, or rather, he mentioned that members of parliament should inform us, implore us, and we shall participate. That's how he ended his presentation. The Kenyatta University people ended their presentation. And I would like to say that we should not wait any longer to be informed or to be implored, but we should actually, just like the quote by Kofi Annan, we should actually take action today. We should actually start from today by taking that information in your small way, in your institution. I think there was part of that report that mentioned that we never saw any civic education process taking part in our universities. But can we start these conversations the same way the debate circle has provided a platform for us to actually come here and discuss about the policies? Can we also continue the same in our institution, in our small groups, in our small areas? And from that, somebody will see you or will hear you, and you will get a bigger platform to actually take up that whole action of participating in the policy development. And so I've enjoyed listening to your presentation. Let's start today. It's a simple process. I was taking this information from actually from watching the parliamentary proceedings to actually looking at the newspaper. And all you need to do is highlight an issue. And yesterday I was very much impressed because the youngest, I think, CEC of Nairobi County happens to be 29 years of age. And it's somebody who had tried vying for a senatorial position for Nairobi County at the age of 24 or 23. And so it's not too late for us to start. You can start today, wherever you are, and take up your space, because we are the leaders of today, not tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elliot. You will all recall that a lot of things have happened with statements as simple as "you can start to get today." Yes, we can. I have been to the mountaintop. You begin to realize that sentiments of that nature could potentially lead to something. So I would encourage us to most definitely heed to what Elliot has said. Now, I will have the honor and privilege of inviting Mr. Marvin, who is a representative of Center for Multi-Party Democracy with us today. I think one of the things that is very important is that they have been here for a bit of time. They have been around since 2004. And therefore, their experience in this particular space of youth policy, or rather policy, and its intersection with democracy and its advancement is very critical. And I think we're very honored to have you in our presence today. I'm going to allow you to address the students and perhaps, what CMD does, what are the spaces for young people whenever it comes to democracy, and perhaps what was your experience, with some of the proposals that have been brought to the table today. So Marvin, a round of applause for him as he comes to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be in a room with both students from Strathmore and Kenyatta University. Just by mentioning, I'm an alumni of the two universities. And to give a brief of what I do. For quite some time, we've always had the notion and the perception that political spaces are not professional as such. From my experience, I've actively participated in political parties, and currently I'm serving at the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, which was formed 2 years after multi-party democracy was established. And we have a very basic and simple exercise as Center for Multi-Party Democracy. We try and unify the space where politicians are, because as an organization, we are also a member organization where several political parties, we call them parliamentary political parties, are members of Center for Multi-Party Democracy. So we unify that space. We try and encourage conversations. We encourage dialogue between political key players. And coming here for this particular event, I'm really elated as an individual, because there is a program that we're also doing as a Center for Multi-Party Democracy, which is a People's Dialogue Festival. Quite a number of you have mentioned of the gap that exists between the legislatures, the people, and the key stakeholders or participants in the democratic space. So this is one of the events that maybe we are keen and we are interested in as an organization, to have an active role that you guys can also play, so that we continue with this conversation. And these platforms brings on board both government officials, we bring on board students, we also have legislators there in that particular dialogue forum, so that we engage. Other issues that you don't get opportunity to meet with these guys, the platforms provide a space for you to participate fully. And I think it is very interesting that I mention this. I've worked closely with then the National Alliance Political Party. I've also worked closely with Jubilee Party. And this is something that I also need to bring forth to students and tell you that in all these political spaces, there is a professional platform. Besides what most people always interact with these parties at the period where we are heading to election, there is so much that happens in those little spaces in between elections. Because you'll find some of these spaces, they even receive funding to have a mentorship program for, let's say, students, even encourage people to participate in that democratic space, to be members of political parties. So each and every political party has constitutional mandate to come and speak to people. Of course, there is that balance where most universities always don't want to politicize their institutions because of having it affiliated to one political party. But we have an advantage as a center for multi-party democracy. In as much as we deal with political parties, we cut across most of the political parties, so you will not likely be accused of being aligned or closely affiliated. And I think it's good to mention, next year in around March, in March from 8th to 11th, we'll be having political conversation, purely political conversation. We'll communicate with the debate circle to see how also you guys will be engaged in terms of the policy proposals that you've given and in terms of even the recommendations that you've provided, because it is always important that at any particular point that you do a research paper, that you work on a document, you see it, you give it life. I'm looking at the proposal that you've provided today on the platform by both Kenyatta University and Strathmore University, and the question that I'm asking myself is, how do we put life to the recommendations that you've given so that we move it further, so that in a year or in a month's time, you will say, I did a paper, I researched. You've given very good recommendation from Norway, Singapore, those developed democracies that we really need to learn from. And maybe also to encourage you, institutions like CMD also gives young people an opportunity to directly interact with this country. As we work as an organization, we work closely with Netherlands, and even next year we'll be having interaction with students from Netherlands who will be in the country, so you are all welcome to learn from them directly, besides the research that you are doing currently, but having it firsthand is also very critical. I'll summarize the presentations that I've had today into one key things: forums to have conversation. And I'm glad that the debate circle is giving you an opportunity to have conversation on critical issues that touches on your life, not only as a young person, but as somebody who is focused in ensuring that the democratic space of this country and also the leadership of this country is put into check. I liked the way you mentioned things to do with monitoring and evaluation, because that is where, from my experience, I think that is where, as a country, we really need to put a lot of effort. In terms of, we always have, Wakili will tell you, we have very good laws. The political space has been defined in a way, you read the Political Parties Act and you become excited. But now that place where we hold these people accountable, we call them to action. How do we monitor? How do we evaluate? How do we ensure that there is a clear path to ensuring that there is a peer-to-peer mentorship? And one of you mentioned of a directive, a presidential declaration, in as much as it is said, it always carries a lot of weight. And one of you made reference to the current president of where he was talking about having a clear platform for mentorship and nurturing of leaders and basically young people. This is something that I think it is very important, and coming from that level, I know as a generation, ZX, I don't know, Sisi or Kitambo, we are in what generation, but whichever generation, but as a society, having such goodwill, it means we have a platform, we have an avenue to start being involved, to start being part of these processes that we've really longed for. As it comes. Of concern to us as an organization and as a people is the continuous voter apathy. When you interact with, and I also call you to go and interact with the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, either on social media, we are really keen on political collaboration, having looking at the trends that we are currently facing. In as much as we may look at it casually when it comes to voter apathy, but it is something that we really need to be keen on. We really need to be intentional and purpose towards ensuring how do we bridge this gap. So in that regard, I think, and I don't know, you didn't say how many minutes we had, but I think yes. And I think on that note, let me conclude and maybe get back to our hosts. And in case you have any question, you feel free to channel through. She will share our contact details so that where you want to plug in to us as an organization, she will give guidance so that we continue interacting and having these conversations. Asanteni.
A round of applause for him. Thank you so much, Mr. Marvin, for the good work that you guys are doing at CMD. I think when you hear that popular phrase, for someone walked so that you could run, I think we could say that CMD, amongst the other foundational organizations, have been the ones that have walked so that Debate Circle can, be able to pick up from where we are at. So I'm very delighted to have you with us, and of course looking forward towards delivering, I think, the greater majority of the young people that have bought into this. I can see Ms. Maureen is just walking in. Thank you very much for making time. I'm going to give you a few minutes to catch your breath before I ambush you in the style of Debate Circle to come and speak to our young people. But yeah, as I was saying, I think CMD is one of the spaces that even as an organization, we have always looked up to, and we desire to work with such organizations going forward. And I'd also throw this as a challenge to you. There's always enough space for any and all organizations in this particular place. Do not feel like we at the Debate Circle are exclusive or we are, are limited. This space can accommodate as many of you as is practically possible. Whatever it is we offer here can be complemented at CMD. It can be complemented by all the other organizations, the Kenya National Youth Council, the Kenya National Debate Council. All these organizations are here, and they're here for this exact same purpose, which is to help us figure out and navigate our way around democracy. So feel free to walk in. Our offices are here. Our social media is always open, and I'm pretty sure that of CMD as well. You can always reach out with some of these ideas, and I think we can all agree that some of the policies that have been brought to the table today, some of us sit and we listen and we're like, could we have thought of that at that time? If we were presented with these solutions, would we have said, let's just go on strike, or what would we have said? So in essence, I'm very glad that we have CMD on board. Now, I have the lovely Miss Maureen with me today. So in the textbook fashion of ambushing people here at Debate Circle, I shall most definitely ambush you. I shall welcome her to introduce herself and perhaps say a few things about this space. She's not new to it, but I do not want to preempt what she might say. So Maureen, feel very welcome. These are the students. We have Kenyatta University represented. We have the University of Nairobi represented. We have Strathmore University represented as well. They have come as representatives of their institutions as well as representatives of their individual clubs. We have the debate clubs. We have the law societies as well. So I'm pretty sure they'll be looking forward to what your experience in this space has been. So by all means, yes. she has suggested that we do a very hearty clap to welcome her to the stage. Thank you very much.
Wow, this is truly ambush. First, I'll start by apologizing for being late. I had prior engagement that kind of took more time than I expected, hence the casual look. So I'll start with my name. My name is Maureen Chepkoech Mtai. I have previously served as the focal point on youth at Council of Governors, which is the head of youth for the 47 counties. I've also served as the advisor on youth in the previous government at the Office of the President. And also, I have served as the Kenya Youth Representative to the United Nations General Assembly, which that is what I was encouraging a lot of young people to be part of and to get the exposure and to know what the world exactly is directing to. So you'll forgive me if I don't maybe align to the conversation that you've already had prior, but you will guide me on what exactly you'd like me to advise on or speak on. And with my, with my privilege of certain information, I will be able to disclose that to you. So to shorten things up, yeah, that is the summary of me, though I think that we already shared our profile, so I believe they already saw it. So there's no need of diving into that. Mine is to encourage all of you and to be thankful that I'm here with you and for you making the time to come here, because this is truly encouraging and inspiring platform, which we want to encourage in our various spaces. And I'm thinking with also the way things are happening in the world at large, not even in the country alone, there's so much that we need to dive into and find out how do we embrace it and how do we take it head on. Most of the, if you notice, the direction in which we are shifting to is more into youth, women, and climate change. So technology is also a big factor in all this. And I'm hoping even as you continue to discuss and debate, that is one thing that you also look at, even if it's in the basics of AI and all the tech, including programming and coding, it's one thing you can explore. And when it comes to climate change, the innovations around it, which turn it to climate action, if it's also something that you guys can look into, because you want to be able to be relevant even as the society moves. Because some things that we thought will work some time back, even 3 years back, are not exactly relevant now. So it's better to open up to new ideas and the direction in which the world is taking. And also just be informed about what your rights are and the opportunity. With the new government forming, we are hoping that at least most of the things that were not tackled then can be tackled now, especially when it comes to young people. There was so much confusion on where can you access the opportunities. Am I right? Did anyone have challenges accessing any opportunities that are being announced? Whether it's AGBO, whether it's YADEF, Youth Development Fund, sorry if I'm speaking in abbreviation. Did any of you have any challenges? Any person? Okay, did all of you succeed in getting those opportunities? Oh, you're hearing for the first time? Oh, yes, speak up. This is how we get to know. Hopefully, I can't disclose the position I'll be in the new government, but I'm praying that the position I'll be can enable, all of you as young people, including myself. Yet I'm not yet 35, so I'm hoping that the things that I hear now at the ground with the, position that I have, I can be able also to air that to those who are either the officials or if I'll be the official for that. So it's good to speak up. If you're not aware of the Youth Development Fund, if you're not aware of the affirmative action, which is now the AGPO, Access to Government Procurement Opportunities, if you don't know about the climate change and the fact that we have climate finance, did you know we have that? Okay, wow. Okay, I don't know where to start if you don't know any of that. Do you know, okay, what do you know? Let's start from there. I think that's the best way to handle this. What exactly do you know when it comes to government? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's good. At least she knows something. Anyone else who wants to give it a shot? Without judging, yeah. Good. That's a good try. Also, are you aware when it comes to the developing partners side, the UN mostly? Do you know of any projects that are being carried out? Anyone? Do you know we have formed an agency? I say we because I'm still the Kenya Youth Representative to the United Nations. There's an agency that has been formed for the youth. They realized when we were doing the Global Championship, I hope you also know the Global Championship. Okay. The president, the former one, Uhuru Kenyatta, yes, was accorded as the global champion for young people. I was privileged to be the one who lobbied for that as a youth representative. That was the accomplishment that I did, is to get him to be a global champion for young people and also to negotiate seed money that can enable the young people who have ideas but don't have money to be given grants so that they can scale up the innovations that they have. So all that was formed into a vehicle called Generation Unlimited. You've heard of it, right? Okay, just Google it, you'll find Generation Unlimited. So through that vehicle, the UN, as well as the government saw their faults or the gap they had when it comes to addressing youth matters. But you see, government, especially national level, it's policy. The county level, it's implementation. So they were trying to look at a way in which they can work together to ensure that the impact that the money they're putting and pumping into the various projects or counties are actually felt with the young people, because they will say, we have done this at Kakamega, we have done this at Kisumu, we have done this at Eldoret, but when you go to the young people, they're like, what have you done? We don't know about that. So they were trying to find a way in which the impacts can be felt as much as the spending is being seen. So the UN has now formed a UN youth agency, an independent one, because they realized they don't have one. Even when we had the global championship, they had to form an interagency, meaning they brought all the 21 agencies, which I think now there are 23 agencies, which is the UNICEF, the UN Habitat, all those, that's what I'm calling agencies, had to come as one so that they can tackle youth matters, because they don't have an independent youth docket or agency. So having seen that, the UN Secretary General decided to form a UN youth agency, which is independent, through the office of the UN envoy, Strathmore. It was just released a month ago. It's not yet being felt here because I think maybe there are still processes, or I don't know exactly what's the reason. And then on top of that, they have also created another docket and another agency called the UN CDF, which that one is for giving you grants and loans to carry out different innovations in the spaces that they'll outline, which they have not released yet. But it's good for you to have this information so that you can be able to have the first hand if you already have an innovation, if you already have an idea of an innovation, and then that way you can get access to those funds. Are we together? Are we good? Is this good information? Okay, good. So is there anything else you'd like me to say before I take my seat? Anything you'd like to know, that is? Yeah. Yeah. You're my teacher's pet, yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Maybe you might have talked about this, I was away, but allow me to just ask. What has been your involvement in policy making and policy creation, ideally, about anything about the youth in our country?
Okay.
Could be of anything, but if you have youth examples, we'd be very happy.
Okay. So I've been involved in the creation of the Kenya Youth Development Policy, which before was just the National Youth Policy. And I'm sure some of you have interacted with it. Yeah, so I was part of that committee. My addition to it was mostly when it comes to skills. I felt that we focused more on the guys who, you know, are in the mainstream. We forget those who are informal, and they're the majority. My contribution to it is ensuring that we cover the spaces that people don't want to exactly tackle, which is now informal sector. How do we create jobs? Because we can't absorb everyone in government or in private sector. You can't have everyone in formal sector. With the numbers in which graduates are being churned out, like in a year, we have what, 600,000 students who graduate. Those who have succeeded, right? Give or take. So picture having 600,000 very qualified, very able young people, and you don't have spaces to put them, which leads to frustrations. And then with frustration, it leads to you getting to go where we were told in Sunday school, idle mind is the devil's workshop. So you end up resulting to either crime or quick money schemes, which is wash, which we know now, drugs, etc., etc. And because we don't want to turn our young people into that, because this world right now, not the future, now, is for all of you. So you have to seize it now, but the only way we can make you see that is by giving you information. If we keep you with information, then you're able to know where you fit. You're able to know what to explore, what opportunity, talks to you, what opportunity aligns to you. But if we tell you and sing to you, tomorrow is your future, tomorrow is the young people's, then you'll keep on postponing it and pushing it, and before you know it, you're past the age of youth. You have not even enjoyed the opportunities that were there when you were young. So you end up going on a panic mode and start just doing stuff, just as long as you're making money. And also to, please your relatives or your family or something like that. So looking at the opportunities that are there, we look at the UN as one of the developing partners. What is there for young people and what policies fit and protect those young people when they choose to go that direction? So there's obviously, when you go to your schools, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard or you have participated, there's the UNV, United Nations Volunteer Program, which mostly targets students. Ages, I'm not sure if it's 19, 24, 27, somewhere there. Because by the UN standards, a youth is until 29. Of course, by our constitution, it's 35. So some things might pass. And then when it comes to private sector, what are those things that are there? There's the Equity Foundation. There's the KCB. I can't remember the name. KCB something, Lions Foundation. There's a company I also worked for called Adenian Labs. I think I took you to it, where we incubate ideas for young people. Where we ensure that we take you through the process of building it so you can earn a living out of it. So for example, if you come up with an idea of, just give me an idea of something, health app. Let's just give an example, health app. And you have the app or you have the prototype, but you don't know how to build from there for it to make money for you, right? So what Adenian Labs does, it takes that idea of yours, scale it to a market level where it's marketable to the people or to the target audience, and they fund the build-up of it. Then once they see you're stabilized and you have understood your target audience and you know how to initiate it, then now they release you to go, do your thing, and then they get equity stake of your company. You get it? So that's one of those examples of private sector. Some of them, if you're interested, I can link you to the ones that I have access to. And then when it comes to now, like for example, KOTU, which deals with the union trade and protecting workers, I created a policy for them, for young people, to those who are in the informal sector to be protected. Because if you realize majority of the vendors, street vendors, And of course, the guys you pass when you're on a pika mandazi or chapati or are selling certain goods are young people, but they don't have any protection. And they don't have any, also, you remember there's a cap that was given even when it comes to house helps. There's a cap of payment. So even for those young people, we need to have that protection where you know this is the amount that need to be, paid, even if it's attachment. If you're in a company and you are being given an attachment or internship, you have to be paid. Because how are you going to get there? Transportation is needed, right? You need at least a basic per diem for lunch, or if you want to get some things like a lady who might need maybe pads or something like that. So these are the policies that I've been privileged to work on, and I'm hoping, of course, now with your, with you having to know this now, you can also support me to ensure that this comes to life and you get to experience it and pass it on to the next generation and go on and on. Yeah.
So one final question, and I know we're pressed for time.
Can you at least allow the 2 questions and then we close? At least I'll make sure they make it short, right? You make it short.
It's very short. If you mine is very short. My name is Ngugi. I'm an advocate. If you are 22, if you went back to 22 years of age, what are the 3 things you would do differently in regard to policy?
What makes you think I'm not 22? That's the first question. A lady never tells. If I was 22 and I wanted to do something different.
What are the 3 things you would do different regarding policy? Going back to campus. Let's take you back to campus.
Policy, the national government, right?
General policy in governance.
Yeah, so that's mostly government. So I would say one is duplication. I would really get rid of that. There was too much duplication in terms of Ministry of Youth is doing something to do with youth. NYC, youth. DYA, I believe you know DYA is a Directorate of Youth Affairs. Now it's called what is it called now? SDA something. Okay. Directorate of Youth Affairs. There's the Council of Governors had the youth docket, but it was under sports and culture. So there's too much of that it was curtailing any progress when it comes to youth matters. You can't move because everyone is saying, I have executive order, I have executive order, I have executive order. So nothing moves because everyone wants to take that, that credit of whatever they will launch out. So that at the end of the day, it stops young people from experiencing those opportunity or sparks that would have come from it. So you don't get anything because people are fighting here. And here the ground guys don't know that. So they're wondering, how come it's not trickling down? All these things are being told. The second thing will be to have one coordinated unit, which still builds from the first. You have one coordinated unit that has all the access. Given that we're in a digital world, we don't need to gazette things because not a lot of people read the newspaper. Or am I wrong? Do you guys read the newspaper? So we turn and ensure that the target audience is the young people. Where are they mostly at? Social media. So we make sure that all those information that we want to pass out are in line to where they are, where our target audience is. Give them information about even the AGBO, what you guys were saying you don't know about. They're there. These opportunities that no one seems to take advantage of. NYS, did you know that you're entitled, as long as you're 18 to 35, you're entitled to 20,000? Did you know that? That as long as you're not employed, you can walk to NYS, giving you, of course, the documents that they will ask, and you're entitled to 20,000 until you get formal or informal job. But no one knows that. So what happens? People become greedy, take the money because they're like, these guys don't know. And then when you hear in the news there's a scandal, you're like, how did they get that money? But you've never asked, what is that money for? But you see, you don't have the information. So what do they end up doing? They end up taking that advantage of people don't know. And then thirdly, I would say is to bring back that transition space. Before, back then, I think in our mother's days or parents' days, when you finish high school, you'd have to go to NYS. NYS was serving as a transition point before you get a job. Why it's formed as a transition point is they will train you in skills, so that in the eventuality you don't get a formal job, you know how to survive. So they give you life skills, where you get to know how to build a business, create whatever it is you're creating, things like that. So those are the 3 things I would have done, but it's not too late, you can still do it. I think that's it, right? That's it?
Thank you so much. A round of applause for Maureen. I can tell there's still a lot of questions for her, and I'm pretty sure NYS is going to be wondering why they're processing 10,000 applications going forward. Tomorrow NYS is going to be swamped, and they're going to be very confused about why everybody knows about the 20,000. But anyway, thank you so much for that particular piece. I think the one thing that we can all take away is that some of these spaces exist, you only need to find them. And I think we can endeavor to, forge the partnerships that are necessary for us to be able to deliver that space for information, to fill that information gap. Now, I'm going to very quickly ask a representative of the judges bench, Mina, if you may, just come share the sentiments of the judges as briefly as possible, such that we can be able to, conclude this event. You're welcome to speak on behalf of the judges on what they felt about the submissions that are made today. A round of applause to welcome him.
So it's very hard to speak on behalf of 3 great minds that listened through the entire policy frameworks that were given in. But first, can we put our hands together for the students, the 2 teams that did amazing presentations right here. So this is what I'm going to do, because I only have 3 minutes, right? So please give me that microphone. This is what I will do, and maybe the production team, maybe you could just focus this camera to judge number 1, who I want to just ask to say in 60 seconds, I'll moderate this, in 60 seconds give your reviews right away. On that camera is looking at you, so that at least they can hear what was your take as well from that. Just in summary, I know we had notes from where you are. Actually, I want you to stand in a way because she doesn't look at me in the other way because of time. So right away here, 60 seconds starts now.
All right, thank you very much. My name is David Kariuki. I am I'm a lot of things, but I think most recently I am the head of policy development and research for Malindi constituency. And what I can say about both teams is that we have seen the amount of work that has gone into your presentation, okay? And we acknowledge the good work that you've done. But of course, every competition has to have, those who picked, to speak in layman's terms and Kiswahili terms, the other team, right? Strathmore did a good job as far as the eloquence is concerned. The articulation of matters was well done. Their agenda setting was really good as well. The policy formulation frameworks were put together quite nicely. However, it was missing as far as the monitoring and evaluation capacities that were given. As much as they highlighted that, they didn't give us the parameters, they didn't give us the data points, they didn't give us all these good things that would enable you to create a good monitoring and evaluation centerpiece, okay? We also need to look into the accountability aspect and the learning aspect. This is what we combine into what we call a meal protocol or meal framework. Meal is monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, okay? We need to see that. We also need to see what you categorize as a pestle analysis. Well, you touched on it very, very briefly. We need to see what you're doing as far as the political angle of it is concerned. The economic angle is is concerned. Pestle, social angle is concerned, environmental and legal. Okay, that's what we call the pestle analysis. That was a bit lacking. Then as far as the problem identification is concerned, as I finish, while you identified your problem really well, as far as your solutions were concerned, you only touched on the peripheral matters and didn't give the core issues as far as your solutions were concerned. And that's one thing that we found lacking. And so I hope that you can do that better next time. KU did a good job. just to mention, as far as your last solution was concerned, as far as the IDs, the digital IDs are concerned, we need to look into how do you now then curb cybercrime as far as that is concerned. You know, are you looking into blockchain? Are you looking into what? You did a good job, but you still were missing with monitoring and evaluation. You had none of that. You fell flat on your face on that. But all the same, you did a good job. I could say so many good things about your team, but allow me to stop at that because of time. You could see me outside in my tent and we could discuss further.
Absolutely. See him outside the tent for that quick discussion. Please, this one promised me it's going to be 20 seconds, so let's see.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Konyango. I'm a friend of the debate circle, and I'm also a lawyer. First and foremost, I want to commend all of you for the great work you've done. It's at this point you would wish we would merge both documents and then have people in relevant offices push them forward as policies. So to those ends, commendable. The corrections that my colleague has pointed out are worth noting. If you implement them, you'll always go far. But all in all, we would really wish that such things, salient discussions that we've had, would migrate from just being discussions to be actual points that we enact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate when such former debaters know how to keep time, 20 seconds, and that's it. I only had 2 questions for all the presenters. One of it, I felt like there was a whole sort of like proposition to disband a whole, voting policy in this country. I felt a lack of in-depth research and comparisons where we have had a lot of apathy that has changed, and we have seen youths participating big time when it comes to elections. So that was a bit lacking. And finally, I love the touch on the curriculum and looking at it from bringing a generation that appreciates voting from the young age. So that was very good. I don't want to touch on which institution said what and what, because that has been said. And my final question to you was this. Shouldn't we think households? Honestly speaking, some of you vote because your parents told you to vote. Is that true? I can see people saying, yeah, niliamushwa. Yes, that's the point. That's the point. You guys are not being real with us. The reality is parents hold very significant influence to making you as well start appreciating it. I didn't hear anyone talk about it, and yet you guys are the ones who are told to wake up early, and you can't even see the sense of it. So if at all there was a goodwill brought in from even the household level, then there could be a whole change in this whole ecosystem. That being said, I'm done, and we want to give you the results. Can I go ahead? Just before I give you the results which are here.
I'm going to ask that Mr. Marvin from CMD just avail himself at the stage, such that he can be able to take us through this session in conjunction with Mr. Maina Chagea.
Please, yeah, this will be good. I think I'm being given more support. So please, I think you can already predict some of the things that were said, sir. I think some of the gifts around, please don't show, because we wrote the name there, don't show. We had a gap of about 10% there, somehow there, by calculations. There's some decimals here, and my maths class was not the best. But we have Strathmore University and Kenyatta University, right? And so we had, with 68.7%, please put your hands together for Strathmore University. A round of applause to them. All right. And with 79.2%, we had Kenyatta University. So I want to ask the first runners up, that's Strathmore University representatives. Please come forward. Representatives, we have a few of them. Yes. Please come forward here. Will be awarded. Please come here. We need 3 of you. 3 of you. You'll be representing your institution to kindly be quickly awarded with the medals, and I will ask our guests to kindly award them with the medals in that style, one at a time. I think I can have the microphone. There you go. Yeah, there you have. No, I think put it in. I think it allows it. There you go. A round of applause as they receive. Thank you so much. Job well done. Job well done. Job well done as well. And that one as well. Yes. Can we have the certificates as well? We'll have some certificates. Oh, yeah, and something else to take home as well. Just keep shaking the hands nicely. Great. Makofi tafadhali. Just give them randomly. The names will be put in, I know, because we had to be sure of the spellings of the names. We know African names have various ways. So just give each their parcel. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Yeah. Sometimes these things don't have formulas, as long as you get them, Then we can pause for channel request. Please come on stage as well, for the sake of this picture of the first runner-up. Judges, our work was done after that, so there you go. Please just be there, yeah, just squeeze in a little bit. There you go. So a round of applause as they get a nice, all of it. Okay, they've been arranged. Congratulations. I don't think the clap will be on the picture, but you can clap. It's okay, yeah, thank you so much. Beautiful. You may have your seats now. Apart from my chief guests. Please remain there. Please put your hands together now for the winners, Kenyatta University. A round of applause as they can. My goodness, so they will get medaled up, some gift hampers as well. And then we'll talk about something that they're taking home. There you have it. Beautifully done. Makofi tafadhali. They can have their certificate and gift as well. That's beautiful. Just pass it on as well. Great, yes. And there's a third one as well. I know the guests are doing some democracy there. Who's going to give what and what? Then we also have someone missing. Oh, there is now the certificate, that the winning certificate of the institution and a trophy. A round of applause to them as well. Congratulations. All of you can hold it somehow. All of you somehow. Or the captain somehow. Yes. Yeah. And of course, there's a cash prize, and I want to give Stephanie this and tell us what is all that, what's happening there. I can see money. Please, go ahead.
So before we hand this over, I'd like us to, give a warm round of applause to Center for Multi-Party Democracy for making this possible today. I think it can be warmer than that. I want it to be as warm. I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate the efforts towards increasing youth activity, especially in this democratic space. And I believe that this should be significant enough of their commitment towards working together with young people. So a round of applause once more as we have Mr. Marvin hand this over to the winning team.
There you have it. A whopping 20,000 bob that was not planned for, but was won. Makofi tafadhali to Kenyatta University. Congratulations. That's good for you. We'll have an interview outside there. What are you going to do with his money? But that's well done. It's the start of the many that you will take home. Is it? There you have it. I want to request the judges as well. Please pop in. And we also have Bill as well. Please make sure you're in the picture. We want to have one full one of all of us inside. Stephanie, let's do one picture as evidence. Some of us is at the background. Yes, as evidence that we were there. Thank you so much. This photograph only takes once. All right. Asanteni sana, back to the host.
All right, a warm round of applause for the winners. Of course, once again, I'd like to appreciate every single stakeholder that is present in this room. I think your contribution is very invaluable in driving these particular conversations. We are well past time. Like mine, I also just remembered I don't have a watch. So I'm just going to ask that we conclude this with a vote of thanks. I'm going to ask Bill Omondi, the other co-founder here at the Debate Circle, to just come and say a few things and thank our guests today as we wind up this session. You have 30 seconds, Bill. Your clock starts now.
So on behalf of the Debate Circle, Maina, Stephanie, and our crew, thank you so much for making this possible. The universities as well, Strathmore University, Kenyatta University, for being part of this initiative. And the judges as well, Paul, Kariuks, let me call it Kariuks, and Maina, for also helping us to do this. And finally, every other stakeholder in CMD particularly, thank you so much for making this possible. And we hope for future engagement, especially when it comes to young people. The last thing I'll mention is the Debate Circle is amongst the very few platforms that it's very keen on seeing the transition of young people from high schools to universities all the way outside, especially in terms of conversations in matters policy and matters governance. So anywhere you are, make sure you pass the message for the Debate Circle out there, because we hope to do amazing things with young people in this country. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
All right, I think that brings us to the successful close of this event. I think I will also want to acknowledge the team that has made the production possible. They're always the guys behind the camera, but without them, a lot of what we do would not happen. So, Frontlight Media under Annette, Joy, Theory, and Brian, we really appreciate you taking your time and making this possible for us. So I think I am now at will to say that you can now leave at your own discretion. We have been delighted to host you, and we look forward to having you again. And I think I'm just going to emphasize on something that Billy has said. This is a space that likes to create synergy, and we like to create a value chain of bringing young people on board. So we don't just start our activities at the campus level, we start our activities at the high school level as well, with high school debates of this nature. So if you have younger sisters, siblings, cousins, nieces, etc., let them know that they have a space that they can explore in whatever institutions they're in here at the Debate Circle, so that we can be able to incubate a system of young people that can add value to the community that we live in, and the communities we shall continue to build into the future. Thank you so much. You are now free to leave at your own pleasure.